Welcome to For You Radio, where the gospel's for the believer and the unbeliever alike. That is you, me, every man, woman, child who has ever breathed and or will ever breathe oxygen and or the other stuff that we breathe on God's green earth. I'm Craig D'Onofrio, pastor of Redeemer Lutheran Church in beautiful Wilmer, Minnesota, don't you know? Troy is not with me today. Troy is busy. Troy has taken on more than he can handle. The guy went and got a PhD, and now he's in high demand. Let's see. He is a seminary professor. He started a classical education school. He's the pastor of a church in Shaker Heights, St. Peter's Lutheran Church, and now on the board of directors for the district. And then he's got enough kids to have a football team. He's just a busy guy. That's just all there is to it. But anyway, I am really glad that sitting in today is my good friend, economist, author extraordinaire of all sorts of novels and works of economy. Is that a way of saying it? Works of economy? Anyway, Ray Keating, and maybe you've read his Pastor Stephen Grant spy novels. But he's going off into a different direction right now. Sci-fi. So we're going to be talking today about sci-fi. How you doing, Ray?
Good. How are you? It's an honor to be here.
It is an honor to have you, my friend. So let's start a little bit about, let's see, you've got Stephen Grant, and then, I should have written it down. What's the other ones?
So there are, Pastor Stephen Grant, thrillers, mysteries.
Yeah.
There are 19 of those, more coming. And then I went into historical fiction, the Alliance of St. Michael
That's the
novels.
one. Alliance of St. Michael.
Two of those.
Yep.
They're set in the early 30s. And now I've decided finally, I've had a lifelong love of science fiction. So Menace, an Agen Dean Cold Novel is my first venture into science fiction.
And I enjoyed it tremendously. I may have to read it a second time even. I'm not sure, but...
Nice.
Yeah. And I haven't gotten into your Alliance of St. Michael's books yet, but I will. Is it Michael or Michael's? Did I just add an S?
You added an Alliance of St. Michael. And that, just real quick, it's a group of Christians in the early 1930s who were doing what they can through this organization to counter the evils of fascism and communism at the time.
Ooh, yeah. I'll have to check that out. I'm looking forward to that. Very cool. So today we're talking about Menace, an Agen Dean Cold novel. And we're going to talk also about sci-fi. And one of the things that's really kind of fascinating about this, you remind me a little bit of Dr. Paul Meyer's books. And the question is, what would happen if they found the bones of Jesus? Of course, you don't go there. But right. What would happen to the church if aliens actually came into this world? And we aren't talking about like microbes riding on a comet. We're talking about intelligent life, right?
Yeah, no, and listen, first off, I appreciate any kind of comparison to Paul Meyer. He was a wonderful person, a wonderful novelist, historian, and he was very generous to me when I first started writing novels. So thank you for that. But yes, listen, first and foremost, as I always say, I'm writing hopefully an entertaining, engrossing science fiction novel. It certainly integrates my experience with spy stuff, thriller elements, and so on. Also, it's set in the 1950s, so you've got the historical fiction angle going on. But Dean Cold is a Secret Service agent who, before World War II, was planning on going to the seminary to become a Lutheran pastor. The war hit, and his course in life changed. But his father plays a role in this book, and he's a Lutheran pastor. And yes, so there's an alien invasion, intelligent life, and in addition to hopefully this being a good page turner, I get to have some conversations to explore this idea of what if. Like, what if there was intelligent life elsewhere in the universe? And what if they came and visited us, and so on?
Now, Dean Cold, during the war, was part of the OSS. And
Yes.
so I always get really nostalgic when you say OSS, because my father's front office lady in his doctor's office, her father was in the OSS. And she would tell me that he had horrible nightmares but could never talk about them. And so you say OSS, and I think about her talking about her father and that sort of thing. But anyway, I've read several books on the OSS, and what a tremendous story that is, and the history behind the OSS with Wild Bill Donovan and all those kinds of people. And you bring that into this book, which I just love. I love that history. And of course, you set this in the mid-century, which, Paula and I are both mid-century modern nuts. So
yes,
you're really hitting all the notes that I'm just loving. Plus sci-fi. I love the sci-fi too. So yeah.
Well, the book literally opens in the Oval Office,
right,
with President Eisenhower, and the action starts right from the beginning there, and it goes from there. So Eisenhower plays a big part throughout the book. Joseph Stalin plays a big part throughout the book, and then I have a few other folks that. Alan Dulles, who's the head of the CIA and was formerly at the OSS, plays a prominent role as well. And then there are couple of minor people. And of course, the name goes out of my head right now, but one of the characters is actually based on the Soviet side of things, a crazy Soviet guy that really liked killing people, and a lot of them.
Yeah.
So, so it all comes into play. I love that stuff. I love history. And that time period fascinates me. It's a melding again of sci-fi, historical fiction, thriller, action. And I thought you and your wife hopefully would like that in terms of the time period it's set in.
I've got to get Paula to read this book, whatever you do with a book.
When you mentioned what if Paul Meyer and the aspect of the Christian aspect of that question. What's fascinating, and I bring this out in the book through a couple of the characters, is that there's actually, which surprised me, there's a long history within the church of speculation about this, of, life elsewhere.
Right.
For a while there was even talk of multiverses by some old-time theologians. So it's really kind of fascinating. When I was doing the research on this, it was fascinating. A couple of C.S. Lewis essays played a big part in me kind of thinking through, the questions that the characters are having, right? What would this mean to your Christian faith? Would it shake it? Would it reinforce it? Would it, what? So C.S. Lewis dealt with this in some essays. My own personal experience, I won't name names certainly, but I had a pastor once say to me, we were having this kind of conversation, and he said, well, if it proved that there was intelligent life elsewhere in the universe, intelligent life elsewhere in the universe, I can talk, that it would shake his faith. It would shake his faith in the incarnation. So I didn't pursue it with him, but that struck me as like weird, quite frankly. But I think it's not unusual for when people start talking about this, even in a speculative way, that there are some people that, start to raise serious questions. And that was part of the reason, I always listen, my first foremost, I'm trying to write a good story, but if I can integrate these things, these aspects that hopefully provide a little conversation and things people to think about, I was like, my attitude was why? And I explore that through the characters.
I always think about, passages in scripture like all of creation groans, and there are a lot of all of creation type passages out there that you can certainly lean to that indicates that God is the redeemer not only of us but of all of created matter. Luther even talks a little bit about how his dog he is comforting his child at the death of his dog, but he says that his dog will be in heaven with a little golden fleece tail and that sort of thing. Yeah. and how Jesus has redeemed all of creation. And I've even told parishioners before who've asked about aliens and that sort of thing. I said, well, if you ever find yourself abducted tell them about Jesus because he died for them too.
Yeah.
So,
well, there you go. That's much of the discussion in this book between this one character, a Catholic priest, Father Ed Duffy, and Pastor Gary Cole, Dean Cold's father, is that type of thing. And they kind of wrestle with, and again, I'm hopefully an informed layman, but I'm a layman, right? So I'm relying on a whole host of folks to look at this. And I appreciate you actually gave it a quick read. I don't know if you want to admit that or not in terms of the theology aspect.
You gave me a couple of chapters that you thought might be controversial, I guess.
Yeah. And I just want to make sure that I'm, in my mind, again, it's fiction, right? It's science fiction. That's what we have to keep in mind foremost. But the conversations, I always find conversations like this interesting and fascinating. But yeah, isn't the answer that, we should spread the good news to everybody? I mean, there are all sorts of questions that various people have gone through. What does it mean for the incarnation? Does what he did for mankind cover potentially other worlds and other species or of intelligent life? And are they fallen or not? Do they have souls? All these things which I found fascinating have been not only touched on in fiction, but wrestled with, as I said, by various notable theologians over the years. So it's interesting stuff.
So what kind of research did you do on this to find, you had mentioned in the book, and also you had mentioned just recently here that there were early church people thinking about this sort of thing. And I can't remember who all, did you quote Augustine? Was he one of them? I can't remember.
Augustine's one of them.
Yeah. Where did you find this stuff? I've read a lot of Augustine and stuff, but I do not remember him talking about little green men or anything.
Yeah, right. It's fascinating in terms of some of the church fathers. I want to get this right, but there were a couple of French Catholic theologians in the mid-century, but it goes back to some of the church fathers. And I'm trying to, I don't want to misquote who it is, but was it Chrysostom, Origen?
Yeah, you did mention Chrysostom.
Yeah, Chrysostom. There you go. So it goes back, and I found a lot of this through. C.S. Lewis, there are two essays by C.S. Lewis, The Seeing Eye and Religion and Rocketry. And that was more of me, as C.S. Lewis has done throughout my life, helping me sort through these things.
So he kind of led the way for you?
Well, in terms of, yes, working through many of the questions that would arise, right? And then there was actually, it's a fascinating book by a gentleman named Paul Thigpen. It's called Extraterrestrial Intelligence and the Catholic Faith. Are we alone in the universe with God and the angels? ? That's a fascinating walk through the history of a lot of this stuff within the church. And then there's another book that's older that he relies upon. So I touched on that a little bit. There was also an LCMS Bible study put out many years ago. I say many years ago, but Off the Edge, Faith, Science, and the Future. Adam Francisco. A friend of yours, I believe.
Yeah, and fellow 1517 podcaster, by the way. Yeah,
and Jesse Yao is, I believe I'm pronouncing that name correctly.
Father of a friend of mine. Yep.
Okay, so they did a nice Bible study on this as well. So those were, I pulled in articles as well. There were a whole host of things just to kind of sort through this. And, it's funny. The original thing that got me thinking about this goes back a number of years. And of all things, it's actually Star Trek. I'm a big Star Trek fan. I grew up watching reruns on WPIX Channel 11 in New York, right? So every night I watch this. And it's funny how, you come at things different times of your life, right? I watch reruns over and over and over again. I was one of those kids. And a good friend of mine said, we were talking about what would a little later on, what are our favorite episodes? And he said bread and circuses. And I was like, that's interesting. Why do you say that? And he just said, rewatch it, the Christian aspect of it. And I would urge everyone to watch that episode because it's fascinating. They visit this planet. It's kind of a standard Star Trek. They visit a planet that is Rome never fell. and it's 20th. Right. It's a 20th century, right? So they get down to they're caught by the Romans, and they're put in the games, but it's on television. Are they getting good ratings? All that type of stuff. But the close is fascinating because they're all standing on the bridge, kind of baffled by the belief that they thought they were worshiping a sun god. And at the end of this episode of Star Trek, they have this conversation on the bridge. It's like, it's not the sun up in the sky. It's the son of God. And watching it at that point with the advice of this friend, I was like, that's really fascinating. And that's what caught my attention on this issue in the very first place. And it's always hung around with me. And I will talk about other episodes of Star Trek that I like, but that one certainly is, among the tops. And it's just like, there's a line by Kirk in it where he finishes out. He says, wouldn't it be something to watch, to be a part of, to see it happen all over again? Because he's talking about, they have Christ and Caesar in their 20th century, and everybody's coming to know it now. That struck me as fascinating. So, then I, went on to write novels and so on, and science fiction came into play, and tied into that. I'll just keep talking. I'm sorry.
That's what you're here for.
I've got a book coming out in late October, which is called 1950 Sci-Fi. And the subtitle is A Fresh Look at 12 Science Fiction Hollywood Classics. So here are most of those 12 movies I had seen before, not all of them, but coming at it with this in mind, it's fascinating how many of those films talk very much about God and faith, which is, other than that Star Trek episode and a few others here and there, especially more modern day science fiction, they tend to write it off as, oh, it's a myth, right? Oh, remember, Christianity is a myth and so on. So those movies also speak to this in interesting ways. And it's usually just like, whether visitors are coming from elsewhere to Earth or they're venturing out into space, it just is very much, this is part of their lives. This is their Christian, this is their faith. And they put a lot of these things in the perspective of, a person of faith would, a Christian would. So it's fascinating stuff. And there's more there, I think, in the entertainment realm than people realize. And as I discovered, historically in the church, there's more of a conversation about it than I think most people suspected. So
let's move on from the Agen Dean Cold Menace novel, which is, by the way, be sure to go to Amazon, get it right away. It's going to sell out fast, so you better get your copy now.
I like that.
Yeah.
But it is print on demand, so you don't have to worry about it.
It's going to sell out fast. Get it now. Get it while you can, right?
There are only so many Kindle editions available.
You got to create this sense of urgency, Ray. Come on. Marketing. But honestly, it is a page turner, and I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I can't wait. How long till the next one comes out?
Well, I'm working on the next Pastor Stephen Grant novel, which I just started.
Come on, Ray, you're killing me.
That comes next. So it'll hopefully be fair. Once I get into writing a book, I tend to be a pretty quick writer. So
you are prolific. I got to say, you really do crank them out. I'm impressed. Yeah. So let's talk about your 1950s sci-fi book. What's it called again?
Well, there you go. 1950 sci-fi.
That's it.
So that's it. A fresh look at 12 science fiction Hollywood classics.
I think you need to come up with something more catchy than 1950 sci-fi.
It looks great on the cover. My son did the cover. It looks great.
So you told me before we started recording that the 12 movies, and I gotta admit, about half of them are not very fresh in my memory, and I need to go back and watch them. But about half of them are pretty fresh in my memory. So what are the 12 movies?
Okay, so the 12 movies are, and they literally start in 1950, the first one, and it goes through to 1959. So Destination Boone is the first one.
Not fresh.
The Day the Earth Stood Still.
Fresh.
When Worlds Collide.
Semi-fresh.
The War of the Worlds.
Fresh.
Invaders from Mars.
Not fresh.
It Came from Outer Space. Them.
I did see that one. Yep.
20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Absolutely.
Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Oh, yeah.
Forbidden Planet,
Great one.
The Incredible Shrinking Man,
Oh.
and Journey to the Center of the Earth. And by the way, The Incredible Shrinking Man, I will comment because this was the first time I watched it. And all I knew of The Incredible Shrinking Man beforehand were these little clips where it would be a little man in a dollhouse and a big cat chasing him. And I was like, this is B-movie schlock, right? I mean, what is this? Watch that movie. It is a fascinating movie. And once again, the end is just like, whoa, that's an interesting statement on the meaning of our lives. And it's just like it's not a silly movie. I mean, listen, I live in Florida now. I often go to the sci-fi dine-in theater in Walt Disney World where they have the silly clips up the whole time you're eating and so on. This is not that. It's a fascinating look at what it means to be a human being, and in particular, what it means to be a man. And the ending, I think, which is fascinating. One of the things I point out in the introduction to this is that today you could read about these movies, and a lot of critics and essayists and so on appreciate them, but they leave out a lot of the faith aspects. They really don't mention them. And even the end of this movie, I mean, I actually quote the last line in little quotes on the quote page at the beginning. They will leave that out, which is bizarre to me, because if you leave out that line, then you're missing the entire point of the movie. So, I mean, I'm not giving anything. I mean, this is the end of the line. The character's name is Scott Carey, and he just finishes by saying, "To God, there is no zero. I still exist." So that, and the last, I would say, whatever you want to say, 10 minutes of the film is about him. I mean, actually, the last third of the movie is about him trying to survive as he continues to shrink, right, in this dangerous terrain that used to be his basement. So he's taking on all of these things that are coming at him, right? And he, at various points, he's like, I've conquered, I've won. And he's talking about being a man and masculinity. But then he realized he's still shrinking. And he's still shrinking. And as he gets smaller, he lands in this place where he says this. And it's interesting, the Hollywood producers at the time told the movie makers, you have to change the ending of this movie because it's a downer. I mean, this is depressing. We want you to, at the last minute, he figures something out and he starts growing again, right? So that was, and to the credit of the director and the writers and so on, they said no. And if you watch this movie, and I think from the proper perspective, it's not a sad ending. It's arguably a very, very, very happy ending. But they didn't get that. They wanted the idea of the Hollywood happy ending, which I understand, is different from this happy ending. But it's a very powerful movie. And I did not expect that, to be honest with you, when I saw it.
But when you're the size of a neutron, what do you have for dinner?
Thank you. That's another big question. But there are other movies like that, which I had forgotten, in the War of the Worlds. I had forgotten how much the end of that movie talks about how do people react when Martians have invaded to the point that they're just wiping out humanity. Right. I mean, they focus on LA, which they do beautifully. I mean, that movie, watch the restored version of that. It's a beautiful movie. It's a fantastic movie. The restoration is fantastic. But you watch that and so the main character is trying to find the woman that he comes to love during this movie, because of course you have to have a love story.
Sure.
But they're separated. He's trying to find her, and he remembers her saying that the only place she ever felt safe as a kid was in church. So he's literally going from church to church amongst this devastation. And he's finding people who are in churches praying with their priests and their pastors and so on. And then even the closing monologue talks about, how God played a role in this in terms of the defeat. And it's very interesting, besides the fact that H.G. Wells was an atheist, so he probably wasn't on board with this. Yeah. When you read the book, the vicar that's in that book does not come off well. He's just annoying. He's cowardly. And, everybody, I read the book and I'm just like, this guy's really annoying. He needs to go away. But the movie makers did something very, very different with it.
I'm thinking about some of the other movies, Forbidden Planet in particular, that you got the id and all that stuff going on. That is the right movie, right? I mean, I've got that.
Yeah,
straight,
no,
right?
That's exactly right. And it's kind of interesting to see the terminology, right? The Freudian terminology of the id and so on. I mean, I just looked at that and I said, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I've not done any kind of research on this or so on and so on, but it just struck me as like, oh, you're talking about human nature. This is the unleashed dark aspect of human nature. That's what we're seeing here. So that was, and of course, that is fascinating as well for all of its Shakespeare links and so on. Mm-hmm. It's basically the Tempest in space. So
right.
So I think there's a lot in that movie as well, and even things like, was it Forbidden Planet? I think it is. Yeah. The Doctor in Forbidden Planet, even little things like when they approach the planet, right? His comment is, as they're looking at the view screen, he just says, the Lord sure makes some beautiful worlds.
I remember that. Yes.
Yeah. So it's fascinating that things like that are just in there,
right?
Not in a forced way, not in a, horrible,
not real preachy Christian or anything.
Yeah, right. It's just part of it. And that's what I aspire to do with my novels, is just make it a natural part. I never say I write Christian fiction. I say I write fiction, I write thrillers, mysteries where many of the characters happen to be Christian and they bring their Christianity with them into the story.
Yeah.
So it's done really interestingly in a lot of these movies. There's one, The Day the Earth Stood Still is a movie that's always made me uncomfortable. People like, what's the alien visitor's name? Klaatu, I think it is, or something like that. Somebody will say that's wrong, but I think that's his name. And he's supposed to be this
Barata or something like that.
Right.
Like that.
But it's always the idea that, he's this peace-loving guy and they're peace-loving, aliens that are just kind of come here and tell her.
He's come to do the math on if this place should be destroyed or not. That's not real peace-loving.
Right. That's what's going on there. And I cannot tell you, I found at least, and these are prominent ones, not things I had to dig around for. I found 2 or 3 prominent essays that tried to say that he was an allegory for Jesus. I'm like, I don't think so. I don't think you understand what Jesus was here to do.
Yeah, kind of the opposite. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
He came knowing this place should be destroyed and doing the opposite there.
Right, because we all know that Jesus came and said, straighten up or I'm going to destroy the planet, right? I mean, that just struck me. I was like, wow, you...
Yeah, he had every right to do that, but no.
It was just very strange. And it was funny. There was a quote in there by somebody that said, well, Robert Wise, I believe, was the director on that. And he didn't realize that he never got caught on that it was a Christ allegory. And I was like, yeah, you know why? Because it wasn't a Christ allegory. Well,
there was a resurrection in there, wasn't there?
Well, that's where it comes up because he's shot, right? And the robot, who I can't remember the big robot's name, brings him back to the spaceship.
Yeah, it was like Gorg or something like that.
Yeah, and he revives him. He revives him. So actually, the Earthling who's there, the woman, she says, "Oh my God, do you have the life of power? Life of power,
the power of life,
power of life and death." Thank you. And interestingly, though. The response is no, that is left for the Almighty Spirit.
Ooh.
So that's the answer by the alien and he's like, no, we just have this, technology right now. And I don't know how long I'm going to last, basically, is his message. So that was interesting in a positive sense. There was another point there where you would never see that. I can't say never, but you would rarely see that in a science fiction movie today. So that was very interesting. To say the least.
Of all the sci-fi movies of the 1950s, what would you say would have the most overtly Christ figure in it?
Wow. That's a tough question to answer, really. I don't know if there's necessarily, a Christ figure in terms of, I think there are aspects of Christianity and faith in a lot of these movies, but I don't know if I'd have to think about that, to be honest with you. I don't think, I certainly would have covered it in one of these essays, and I didn't. So I can't say that there's an overt Christ,
I can't think of anything in particular. I mean, of course there is body snatchers that, no, I don't think.
Invasion of the Body Snatchers is an interesting movie.
That really movie just creeps me out. I mean, always has. And of course the remake, Donald Sutherland was in that, right? Wasn't that Donald Sutherland?
Leonard Nimoy in it too? Leonard Nimoy, I think, was in it too.
I don't remember Leonard Nimoy in it. But
I think so.
I just remember the pointing and that weird sound that they'd make. Yeah.
I watched Invasion of Body Snatchers, and it's just, I don't know. Anyway, it's a very, you're right. It's a very creepy movie. There's also the other one that's creepy, which doesn't get much attention. And Steven Spielberg cited it a few times. Was which one is it? I want to make sure. It Came from Outer Space, which is another one where people are snatched, right, and replaced. And that's very, very interesting for a whole host of reasons. But there again, there's just this little moment where the kid in the movie prays, that his mom and dad will be okay. And it wasn't like, again, out of place. It was just kind of what you would naturally expect that child to do. So the other part of it is, I mean, in terms of the influence of these movies on future filmmakers, it is fascinating. I mean, Forbidden Planet, you can see the influences on Star Wars, on Star Trek. Somebody once said, I don't know who said, but they said Forbidden Planet could have been treated like the pilot for Star Trek. So there are a lot of those. I mean, you can see the influences on people like Spielberg and Lucas and Roddenberry and James Cameron and so on. And George Pal, it's a name that people, if you love science fiction movies, you should know that name, because he was behind so many of these movies, including the special effects. That was his specialty. But he really isn't recognized much outside of, the people in the know. But his name should be up there with people like, Lucas and Spielberg and Roddenberry in terms of what he accomplished with some of those 1950s movies.
Oh yeah, Forbidden Planet, if you have not seen it, is really a fantastic movie. It's one of my all-time favorite sci-fi movies, maybe my favorite. It's amazing. Ray, we're pretty short on time here, but I just have to chastise you. I can't believe that you left off any Ed Wood movies like Plan 9. I
tried to stay away from
possibly the worst movie ever made.
They are fun to watch though, because they're so bad, right?
It is so awful that it's good. That's how bad it is. Bela Lugosi.
I tried to stick with the classics. Truly are classics.
I think Bela Lugosi died during the making of that, and they had a guy who was wearing a cape who would just cover his face to finish the movie, playing Bela Lugosi's role.
Is that why he keeps doing it? All right.
Yeah. So, awful movie, just terrible. By all means, you need to watch it. It's just awful good.
Yeah, I'll tell you that there are probably movies that people look at on this list and they're like, really? What? I mean, even like Destination Moon, that was the first true hard science fiction movie. And it was basically what the creators thought it would take to get to the moon in 1950, according to their viewpoint from 1950. And they were on target with a lot of stuff. So it's really, that movie is interesting in and of itself just for that attempt. And then you also, I know people have a tough time today putting it into the time period, but you also, when you look at some of these movies and you see the special effects and a lot of people roll their eyes, it's like, understand what was going on at the time.
Oh, in those days, those special,
impressive.
Yeah, for those days, the special effects were phenomenal. People were blown away. Yeah. Did you say that it came from outer space? Was that on your list?
Yes, it came from outer space.
Yeah, that was a good one too. Yeah. But that's been a while since I've seen that. Every now and then I go on these benders where I watch these old sci-fi movies, and so I'm looking forward to watching a few of these.
Check them out. Check them out.
Yep. Ray Keating.
And I hope, real quick, my hope with this book is that maybe people spot them, some things that they didn't think of before, but also it's just great, fun discussion, right? In terms of debating and discussing these movies. It's always enjoyable.
Menace, an Agen Dean Cold Novel. 1950s sci-fi. Can it be pre-ordered?
Yep, pre-ordered now at Amazon, or you can go over and pre-order signed copies at raykeatingbooksandmore.com. And
then tell us real quick about all your Disney stuff.
Oh, my goodness, yeah. Head over to disneybizjournal.substack.com. Write essays over there, my wife and I do, and do some little podcasting. And one of the latest book out there is 10 points from Walt Disney on entrepreneurship. So if you think Walt's a great entrepreneur, which I think he was, you can check that out.
And then last but not least, if people want to repent of their communism and learn about free markets, how do they do that?
My Weekly Economist book series. So you can get those at Amazon.com, or again, all my books, you get signed editions again over at raykeatingbooksandmore.com. And you also can get a book called Free Trade Rocks.
Ooh,
which you can check that out as well.
Yeah, you can learn about rocks there. That's good.
That's right. The free trading of rocks.
That's right. Hey, Ray, thanks for being with me. Always a pleasure to have you, my friend. And
this is fun, Craig.
God's peace, and keep up the writing. Love it.
All right, take care.
God's peace. Bye-bye.
For You Radio is a 1517.org production. To listen to this radio broadcast and broadcasts like this one, I invite you to visit 1517.org. There you will also find many publications and free resources, including classes on Christian apologetics, church history, philosophy, and so much more. We are completely funded by generous donors like you. Would you consider making a generous gift to our work of spreading the gospel? Simply visit 1517.org.